I would like to welcome everyone to the January 6th, 2026 Littleton Conservation Commission meeting, and we are virtual tonight. What I'd like to do is go ahead and approve the minutes from December 16th. What I would like to do is to make note on the draft that we were submitted at the top. It states December 2nd. That's a typo, and the new version that we have should say December 16th. So that would be a first edit. Does anyone else have any omissions or corrections to any of the 4 pages that was sent out?
I just had a very minor thing under the discussion of the budget for FY27. About halfway through, it just says, however, the finance and treasurer's departments. I would just put, however, the finance department.
What page are you on, Andrew?
That's page number 3.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Anybody else have anything? If someone would like to make a motion to approve the December 16th, 2025 minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion that the commission approve the meeting minutes of December 16th, 2025 as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Andrew, would you do us the favor, as always, of doing roll call?
Of course. Roll call. Of course. Roll call vote. Chase.
Chase Gerbig, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Carl.
I'm Elberg, aye.
Michael. Oh, Michael, I think you're on mute.
I'll abstain. I was not present.
Oh, you can still vote on them.
Then I will say aye. They were beautifully written.
Excellent. Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye.
Chase, did I already get you?
Yes, you did.
Oh, perfect. And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's jump in. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add for administrative discussions? Lauren has given us 2. One is trail, an update for the Massachusetts Trail grant that we're going for, and then an update with 6 Cottage Way. Anyone else have anything that they would like to add?
If it's okay, I would like to add, maybe I'm overstepping my bounds as a commission member here, discuss the commission's willingness to let the Scouts camp Newtown Hill in a few weeks. I will bring an application forward to you all, but I wanted to at least give you a heads up that it's coming. Okay.
Do you have enough time before the next meeting, Chase?
Yes, but
okay.
I did want to get it on your radar that I will be asking, and to see if there are any substantive issues with it that I should be prepared to address.
Great. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to start in on the 7:30 discussions, and we're going to start with 15 Countryside, which is loaming and seeding, and that was in your packet. Let's see, and that was with Goddard.
Yeah, so I don't see Mark yet. So, and he was going to speak to, Mark Arnold was going to speak to this. So I don't know if you want to jump to next.
Okay, let's go ahead. I see John is here. Let's go ahead and John, we're just going to put you on hold for just a second. Let's go ahead to the enforcement order 359 King Street. So that's going to be Dwight. We're going to move you over.
I just promoted him.
Oh, I did too. So maybe he's in Neverland. Okay. So Dwight, I don't know if there's anyone else here that you would like for us to move over to speak with you on this. So Dwight, you're muted, just so you know.
There.
Yep, you're all set. Dwight, anyone else joining you tonight that you want me to
I don't know. Mark said he had another meeting.
Okay.
And I think Joe was gonna come on, but yep. I don't think there's a whole lot. I think Chase had asked for clarification on the isolation of that one particular area.
Okay.
And
And I think that last that we let also, Lauren, if you want to give an update in regards to your wetland scientist that was going to go out. So if Lauren, if you want to give that update for Dwight, that would be great.
Yeah, so Dwight, Tim, myself, and Andrew Thibault from Goddard met. We walked the wetlands just before Christmas, took some soil samples, and Tim and I confirmed that there's no hydrological connection between what was a once man-made trench and the identified isolated vegetated wetland.
Okay. Great. And then at one of the previous meetings, Dwight, you had submitted just a kind of a rough draft for in terms of trees and things like that. And then I believe Joe confirmed that they were the ones that were removed were red maples. Let's just go ahead and fill the commission in of where you are now, kind of going forward with some of the plans.
okay, yeah, so we did confirm they were all red maples. So we are going to work with the surveyor, and we're going to engage a landscape architect and come back with a proposal for you, hopefully at the next meeting. But I would like to request, this is what I would like, and you can tell me if this is off the table, because I'd like to know if it's off the table before I go down this road and invest a bunch of money in it. It's where the trees were in three, if you look at the stumps on the surveying map, they were kind of like three clusters. And I'd like to do something similar to that, those clusters, and I'd like to bring them closer to the 50, like the 50-foot mark versus the 100-foot mark, just to open up the pasture a little bit. And what I'd like to do is put obviously some trees back in there, put some winter berries for the birds, some summer berry food for the birds, and some nesting trees. But I'd like to know if that proposal could be on the table, if it's sufficient, if you like the proposal versus if you're going to tell me I have to be right up to the 100-foot mark, I'd kind of like to know that now versus.
Dwight, I think it's a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't have any of the plans up in front of us.
Yeah.
But commissioners, go ahead, just from your memory of this as well.
I'll tell you, Dwight, I'm going to half answer your question. From my perspective, I am not necessarily looking for one-for-one replacement in the exact locations. What I am looking for is a reasonable attempt to replicate the wetland benefits that the removed trees provided. And so, in general, what you're describing to me doesn't sound problematic. Like what I struggled with prior was essentially just pushing everything right to the property boundary, to the extent that there are sort of islands of trees here. That in my mind is a better replication of the wetland and ecological benefits that those trees were providing. I'm not entirely sure what you mean, moving closer to the 50 than the 100, but I will say I'm not necessarily looking for replanting a tree in the exact location from which it was removed.
Okay, that's really good feedback. There was probably, I think there was like 20 something trees in the 50 to 100 and 15-ish trees in the 50 to 0 or 1 to 50. All right, well, that's good. I can work with that, and hopefully I'll come back with a proposal. Is next month, would we be on the agenda next month, Lauren?
Yep, we can do that for sure.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
All right, well, I'll work with my team and we'll be back to you.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much.
Yep. We're going to jump back to 50 Countryside, which is for the loaming and seeding. Mark Arnold.
Yeah, I just promoted Mark.
Yep. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My apologies for my tardiness. I
No worries.
have a virtual
Mark,
meeting.
is there anyone, before we get started, is there anyone else joining you that you want us to promote?
Yes, the homeowner is also on the call. So if you could promote John Reese.
Okay, so it just says John, so I'm going to go with that John. Okay. Okay, great. Mark, if you could just introduce yourself, and then just for the commissioners to know, his notes were sent along in your packets. Yep, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting here on behalf of John Reese. We were reached out by John. He's having some erosion issues on his property that up directly abuts the lake there on 50 Countryside Lane, and wanted to look at how we could ecologically stabilize the soils better, and particularly how we could maybe vegetate areas in a better manner, and also maybe reduce some lawn areas, and also think about how the sheet flow goes to the lake directly, and if there's ways to kind of make it more circuitous, which would slow the water rate to the lake, and reduce erosion, but also improve the areas there. So we put together basically a buffer zone enhancement plan. And the goal of this plan is to look at these areas that we have on the site, and how can we slow the water down, how can we increase vegetation and water take up, and improve the area, basically. So this is all basically improvements where the goal is to reduce lawn and add plantings. And as part of that, we also want to do a little bit of very minor grading by adding some loam to sheet flow water around. And I'll show you what I mean on the sketch in a moment, but it's just so you know existing conditions wise. So we have a pipe here that comes from a gutter here, and what happens is the water comes out here, and then what it does is the lawn has created a ridge, and so the water comes out of the pipe, and rather than going through this treed and forested area, it goes along the edge of the lawn and picks up erosion, goes faster. And so that's a concern that John had. And then we also have some areas where the roots are very exposed, which is not helping with the tree health as a whole. And then down here in the bottom corner here of the lawn, we're starting to see a lot of concentration of flow through this area. So it's making it very the grass can't take, the grass won't grow. There's very little shrubs or low growth vegetation besides the herbaceous layer, and we're looking to see how we can basically tighten up the current disturbed areas really that are maintained as lawn, and kind of make it more friendly in that way. So I'm going to take you to the sketch, and then I'll walk you back through what we're doing in each area. So this is the area here. We did a wetland delineation. You've got a wetland resource area over here on the side here, and then you've got the bank of the lake. And basically, we have these solid orange areas are areas that are basically areas that have been maintained in some form. This area here on the right is basically a forested area that has a cleared understory. So the understory has been kept clear of almost all woody vegetation. There's herbaceous, but that's about it. This middle area here is very similar to that. This area here is actually currently basically lawn, and then this area here is a lightly shrub and forested area with a lot of openings for additional plantings. And so what we want to do is we want to reduce the lawn in this dotted area here, this area here, and this area here. And what we're doing is we're taking the lawn and we're adding some loam to direct the water into more vegetated areas. Take it away from the paths that direct it towards the lake, sorry. Give it a longer path, and keep the water off the lawn as quickly as possible. So that way it can actually infiltrate and be used by the vegetation that's in the buffer zone rather than just sheet flow the pathway of least resistance over pathways. And what you've done here, as you can see, we've actually kind of created, instead of having a more direct path to this, the kayak area here, we kind of created this little meandering path. And this basically will discourage flow of water following the path itself. And the goal of, again, is to basically take the water, get it away from the paths, because the paths are the pathway of least resistance to the lake. And then inside these areas that already have trees and stuff like that, we want to actually add vegetation. So in this yellow area here and this orange yellow area here, we want to plant taller native buffer zone / partly wetland. I mean, like facultative plants that are tall, normal height vegetation and shrubs. And these areas are basically areas that are already kind of tall, or they're not major vistas to the lake, so we can let tall stuff come back. And that's our goal, is to kind of bring back some of the taller vegetation here and then along the property line here. And then once we get a little further into the middle of the property, we're going to plant low growth native plants, low bush blueberry, juniper. That way we can fill in the understory with low growth to get rid of all the cleared understory and actually make it an understory that actually has some health to it, while also giving us the ability to maintain a vista naturally without actually having to maintain it at all, because the vegetation will naturally do that for us by staying low to the ground. So that's really the plan in a nutshell. The goal is to be very, very much a kind of a John working very closely with us and to implement this. He really is excited to do something that's very low impact. So this is a very low impact in terms of what we're doing. These areas where we're adding loam, no more than 6 inches, and that's at only certain points. Probably 2 to 4 is probably going to be the average. Basically bringing it in by wheelbarrows, no equipment, no machines. This is all handwork, because we want to be very careful around the trees, around the roots, to keep these areas really healthy, and also kind of bring back some of these areas into an area that's more robust. We did include a proposed planting palette, basically. So we have your tall shrubs, and also adding in ferns and native seed mixes, and then we have our low growth planting palette, basically. And again, the goal is to have some areas of low growth, some areas of high growth, keeping the vista naturally clear, so that way we don't have to come back to you in 5 years and ask to do some vista pruning. That way we can kind of have something that's kind of naturally maintained by nature, while also kind of preventing erosion. So that's what our plan is. Basically, we're going to be working with John closely to implement this, and we're hoping that this could just be commission administrative approval. In it, we do have erosion control proposed around the loamed areas, so if there is any issues there, those will be installed before we do any loam, so that way we don't have any erosion issues until those areas are stabilized with the seed mixes, and also the shrubs and herbaceous plants will be installing. So that's the proposed plan, and we're hoping that we could implement that and get it going this spring.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Commissioners, questions for Mark or for John?
One thing I think you should address, Mark, is the exemption of this activity from permitting under the Wetlands Protection Act. I had to look up the specific exception, and I think it may be worthwhile for you to address that for the commission.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, we are working within existing lawn to restore areas. That's an exempt activity, and then planting native plants in the buffer zone would also be exempt.
Does that make it exempt from a waiver from us as well?
So I looked at that. I don't think it is exempt from a waiver, but I would be willing to approve this contingent upon, I'm not sure if the applicant is the right word here, contingent upon the applicant providing a sufficient waiver to the agent. I think it's pretty straightforward waiver. It's in the public interest, but
for sure.
I think we should dot our I's and cross our T's there if we're willing to go forward on this without a full NOI.
Okay. Yeah.
Other commissioners?
I would echo what Chase said, not to throw a wrench into this, but is that dock currently existing on site?
It's a seasonal dock. He pulls it out every year, so it's there in the summertime, but right now it's out.
Gotcha.
Is it permitted?
I know John, I think said he wasn't totally clear on it, or John, are you?
No, it is not permitted. I started the process and admittedly it got so cumbersome beyond my skill sets, I gave up for just a seasonal dock. So I started it, but I just got lost in the paperwork.
It is something that John and I have talked about, trying to figure out how we can kind of square that away as quickly as possible. So we're doing a little bit of digging to see if there's ways we can kind of help him with as little involvement from us as possible to kind of help it make it easier for him. So that is something I know John mentioned that. I forgot that it's right. So we need to work on that permit.
And our agents might be able to help you with that a little bit as well.
If you could, that would be great. And I was going to look to Goddard, to require it to have them do it because I know they've done it for other people too. So their skill sets are way beyond mine. When the lingo, I didn't even understand a lot of the lingo, and I couldn't answer a lot of the questions appropriately. So I just didn't follow through with filling it all out.
Yeah, and John, you wouldn't be the first one to get hung up on the licensing.
Well, it's a little tough, but it's only a seasonal dock. It's not like it's a permanent fixture, a commercial on a active waterway. So
the state has really started to focus on it. However, okay.
Hey, Sarah.
Go ahead, Carl. Yep.
The other question I have: how long has the Vista area been clear cut down from the house?
John, how long did you have the property?
House is built in '62.
Yeah.
We bought it in 2014.
Vista's been there a long time.
Yeah, it's been there since '62, from what I know.
Just trying. So basically, it was clear. It was cleared back then. Is what you're saying?
Long time ago.
Yes.
All right. Just trying to get an idea. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay.
So this is essentially taking and reforesting in a way. Wrong word, I know, but trying to put it back somewhat closer to nature.
Correct, exactly. We're trying to add the vegetative layers all back in to most of these areas by giving the actual wooded areas some actual shrub layer, and that will reduce erosion, add water take up, reduce any type of sediment from movement as well. So add wildlife habitat and fruits and stuff like that. So all that a benefit to everything. So really just and it will also look nicer too.
Okay, commissioners, it sounds like you're in unison with this proposal. Mark, are you seeking a formal vote on this, or commissioners, how would we like to go forward with this?
Madam Chair, I mean, a vote tonight would be great. If you wanted to wait on the waiver and vote next meeting, that would be okay, as long as I hopefully don't have to attend, so we can just keep John's costs low. Yep. I mean, I'm sure he could come if needed, but if the commission wants to just have that paperwork in place and allow the agent to correspond with us offline to make sure that that's good. If it's good, then if you want to wait, that way you have it in hand, that's fine. We've got some time here, but I'd hate to have to come back to another meeting.
Yep. Okay.
It's just
commissioners, are you good with that? So knowing that we are of support, so if by chance there's not a commissioner, it's fantastic that we're all here tonight and in unison. So Mark, if you want to submit that, and then John, if you could come for the next meeting, that would be great.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. We're going to go ahead and move along. It's now 7:54. We're going to open up the 7:45 public hearing, notice of intent 0 Whitcomb Ave, DEP-204. Whoop, sketch. There is no number. Habitat Enhancement Project. Okay. There's no number on that.
I'm promoting Matt and Scott.
And Scott. Yep. Scott, we see you.
Hello. Hey, there we are.
All right. So if you could, Scott, welcome. If you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
I am Scott Smyers from Oxbow Associates, and I'm representing the project this evening for a habitat enhancement in the buffer zone to some wetlands. Can I?
Yes.
Share my screen.
Yep. Go right ahead.
Okay. Oops. Can you see my map?
Yep. And your desktop. There you go.
All right. Well, here's where the site is on some Sudbury Valley Trustees property, the Smith land, west of Beaver Brook and east of Whitcomb Ave. And I want to get to the other part of this part. And if we zoom in on here, this is the area that we're proposing some habitat enhancement. I'm not sure if Matt Silverman is here from
Matt's here.
Electric Light, and I think he might want to say a couple of things before I get too far into this. Matt, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, Scott. Yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. This is Matt Silverman, superintendent with the water department in Littleton. Just before we get into the specific project, we thought it would be appropriate to give a little bit of context, just because it has been over a year since the water department had attended a conservation committee meeting for the larger Trumbull Well development project. So just to kind of tie it together to that larger project, this habitat enhancement is part of the conservation and management permit that we were issued by the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, and the individual tasks in the permit, of which this project is one of those tasks, are required for us to construct and use the Trumbull Well. And the well is the one that is being developed off Taylor Street behind the Amazon facility. So just to give you some quick update on the progress, because the larger well project started over a year ago. We're still on schedule to complete the well and transmission main installation, as well as the pump station construction this upcoming fall of 2026. Our contractor has installed all the transmission main on Wickham Ave, finished paving, built the access road at the well site, and performed several soil borings, because we're going to be directionally drilling under Route 2 for the transmission main. And they've also began the production well drilling, haven't finished the actual well install yet. So over the next 10 months or so, we'll be completing the well installation, also completing the outstanding transmission main that hasn't been put in yet along Route 2 and under Route 2, and then actually constructing the well building and all the appurtenances on site. And this project has been progressing in conjunction with the water main extension into Boxborough, which is almost fully complete. We're just doing the service connections this upcoming spring. So things have been moving along a little bit, relatively slow, but this year we'll have a lot more action on the site, and we're kind of simultaneously working with Weston Sampson and Oxbow to get to meet all the requirements of our conservation management permit so that we can operate the well. So I'll kick it over to Scott.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so thank you for that explanation. And if we look back to this, what I will point you at is the purple line here. That is the approximate access. And then the red is the habitat area we're working in. And again, this is for a rare species, but I'm going to avoid talking about the specifics of the rare species, because this is all public information, and we're supposed to minimize that discussion and leave that for those details to the Division of Fish and Wildlife and the Natural Heritage Program. Anyway, we are creating an open canopy sandy habitat within this red line here. So we're going to clear what trees are remaining in there, except for a few. There'll probably be a few that we keep. Sudbury Valley Trustees owns the land. They did a big forestry project managing some non-native forest species a couple of years ago. So some of this area has already been somewhat cleared of big trees. So there really aren't too many trees in here to begin with, which is nice. It also has sandy soils beneath it. And we think we are going to be able to cut the vegetation, strip the topsoil, push it to the sides, and make compacted berms in those along the edge. And we can, based on the topography, strategically build up those berms in areas where we think there might be more surface runoff, so it won't run off, especially towards the wetland. The access road here on the northern side, we may change that because it really doesn't have to go right down the side there. And we know that the Sudbury Valley trustees did actually do some native plantings in this area. So we think we come around this corner, and once we're into this work area here, we don't really have to have this area here. We're also going to have erosion control around the limit of work on these two sides. And then within the center of the work area, we'll create ridges and mounds to make it irregular, to provide a little bit more drainage and not make it a straight ahead moonscape. But there will be some little blue stem plantings, which is a bunch grass, a native bunch grass that's common in areas like this and survives well. And we'll plant those scattered throughout the area, and maybe throw some logs down and stones as well. And then we'll do some, we'll be doing some monitoring of this area for the Natural Heritage Program as part of the permit, conservation permit. So there'll be some reports on that as well that we could share with the commission too. So with that said, I think it's a little bit unusual of a project for the commission to review, but and the fact that we're removing trees within the buffer zone to a wetland, is usually something that the commission is trying to minimize. But in this case, it's required by the state for the rare species issues, and it will be a long-term benefit for rare species in the area. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have. We did a site walk, I know, with a lot of the members of the commission this summer. So I think a lot of you have been there already. We've walked around. But if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them the best I can. And if you don't have any questions, that's okay too.
Nice. I was Carl. I'm familiar with the site. I was on the site walk, and fully support what you're doing. It's actually very similar to what they did over at what you guys actually helped do over at Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge at the Oxbow Refuge.
Oh yeah.
So I'm very familiar with what you're doing and the benefits.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I ask about the access path and what that's going to look like? Is it
okay?
You clearing? What's the plan for that?
Well, like I mentioned before, there's already a trail and a lot of clearing that was done in the past couple of years for the forestry project. So we're going to try to use that as much as we can. The idea is not to have a long-term access. It's really a one-time thing, and it'll be restored after we leave. And it's just to get the equipment in there and get any material we have to get out. Ideally, we want to leave the cleared loam or the stripped loam and the vegetation on the site, not haul it off. But if it becomes too much, we might have to bring some of it out by truck, but probably not. So it's just wide enough to get some machines down there.
Yeah, I mean, my preference would be if you could not bring it into the 50 within 10, 12 feet of the wetland. It seems like you could come right in the western edge, right? Is that?
Yeah.
That just seems.
Oh yeah, right over here.
A lot longer than run you need to and impacting more area. Yeah.
In this area here, you're talking about?
Yeah, there, even right below your
Yeah.
So in the middle of that line, the red line.
Yeah.
That,
I
that
think
would be fine too.
we were just following an existing
Right.
access there, but we can probably change it to that. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
and go with what's available, I guess. That makes
Yeah.
sense. That has less impact.
Okay.
Scott, will we be privy to the monitoring results that you guys will be doing out there?
Yeah, we can share some of the details with you. I think for public information, I think for the Conservation Commission perspective, I think it'd be valuable to have some information about any invasive plants that are coming in, regrowth that might be happening of native plants that are invading, and what that means and what we recommend, and not necessarily all the details with the rare species.
I just have a quick question. I think this is more towards Kyle and Scott. After the work is done, if you do have to create a different access point, as you're coming out of the project, are we resettling that road back in so that it can revegetate if you already have a path as well?
That's right. Yeah, we're not looking to make any more paths than we have to. The part of the plan is to restore the disturbed areas outside of the area that's supposed to be disturbed for the project itself.
Great, thank you.
Restore that as is, and that's something that's important to the people who own the property, the Sudbury Valley trustees.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I do see that Dan is here. Dan, have any questions? If so, just raise your hand. If that's not the case, what is the pleasure of the commission with this notice of intent? Oh, I see, Scott, Matt, you don't still have a DEP number?
Good question.
Yeah, we have not received one yet.
I don't think so.
Okay, so that will harbor us. We'll have to hold off. Hopefully you'll have it for the next meeting.
Yeah.
But we would like to keep this open until we do have that formal DEP number.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But commissioners, is it fairly straightforward that when that DEP comes in, that there would be no other formal discussion, that we could just move to open and close that and issue? Or do we want them, Matt and Scott, to come back?
I'm good with it, Carl.
Okay. Well, hopefully just let us know as soon as that number comes in, but we'll put you on for the next meeting, but it may have to be continued if it's not in yet.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You too.
It's now 8:08. I'd like to open up the 8 o'clock continued public hearing. Notice of intent 242 King Street, DEP 204-1030. Removal of existing driveway, pool, and walkway, construction of parking lot and walkway. Do we have everybody?
I don't see either Bruce or Limpa. If there's someone else from GPR here.
If there's anyone that wants to be heard, just raise your hand. I don't see anyone that I don't. Okay. Let's go ahead, keep it open for a little bit. Let's just jump back to an administrative discussion. And request for certificate of compliance. This would be for Lauren 1 Sawyer Lane, DEP 204-739 and 204-951. Lauren, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so I will share my screen here. So this is a request for a certificate of compliance for its 2 projects. Actually, do you see that?
Yes.
Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so this is their as-built. Tim marked up the deviations, but just to highlight them, the approved driveway and the existing driveway footprints are different, but all of the deviations occur outside of the 50-foot buffer area. This gravel parking area was installed. There was supposed to be a shed here that was never built and is not going to be built, but this gravel parking is there. Yeah, and there's a little bit more landscaping here than was approved. So basically we're asking if you're okay with these deviations, then we'll go from there, and if not, we'll address this.
And you have 2 separate DEP numbers?
Correct. There were 2 separate projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a point of order, we need to vote on each individually. If someone would like to make a motion, let's do the 739 first.
Can we pause for a second before we vote on these?
Sure. Yep.
I'm a little troubled by the degree of deviation from the plan. If that gravel parking area wasn't approved, and I mean, my rough estimate is we ended up with more paving than was approved. What?
But didn't Lauren say that there was supposed to be a shed that didn't get built and that's where the gravel is? Or did I misunderstand that?
No, that's correct. There was supposed to be a shed here. I do not know how large the shed was supposed to be, but this gravel is certainly larger than just a shed.
On one level, like looking at it, would we have approved what was built? Probably, maybe. But also, what are we doing if people are just going in and building whatever they darn well please, and then coming back and getting approval after the fact? I'm
What
a little confused here.
Yep. So what are your thoughts? Do you want to go ahead?
I don't know. I just don't like that it's different than what we approved.
Right. Do we want to go ahead and have some commissioners go out and just see and to see what has been done, if it is just gravel, if there's any way to revegetate or do something else?
I think that'd be helpful. And just to refresh my memory too, was this the house on the east side of this plan? Was there supposed to be like a little deck off the side of the building, if I'm remembering correctly, and we didn't approve that? I'm just trying to refresh my memory of the site.
Yes. So if I was not here when this was approved, obviously, but if I followed the plans correctly, there was a deck here that was not approved, not built, and this kind of bump out deck was approved and built.
Gotcha. Okay, I know exactly which house and which plan. Thank you.
So other commissioners, we've got a couple options. Do we want to just put a pause on this and relook at this at the next meeting in hopes that 1 or 2 commissioners can go out with Lauren or Tim?
That sounds good.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
My other ask here is that I would ask the property owners to provide us with an estimate of the permitted driveway area.
Mm-hmm.
And the constructed driveway area and the area of gravel parking that was added versus the area that was proposed to be disturbed under the original plan. I'd like to see how different these really are.
So, Lauren, that might take them longer than 1 meeting. So just use your best judgment with that. You may have to push them out 2 meetings. Okay.
I will also say this gravel was snow covered when we visited, so
okay.
Delaying may make sense.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come back to the 8 o'clock, which was notice of intent 242 King DEP 204-1030. Anyone join us? Okay, we're going to wait 1 minute because then we're going to move on to the 8:15.
I can give a short update on our end if you'd like.
Without them here, I would probably wait. We did receive comments from Green, however. So that's in your packet, which was the back and forth from the engineer and Green. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close that. And my watch says 8:15. Continue.
Not close it, right? We're going to continue it.
No, we're going to continue it.
Okay.
Sorry, did I say close?
Yeah.
I meant like timing of it. Yeah. So.
Sure. Yeah, understood.
So we're going to move it to the date of the next meeting. Yep. Okay. 8:15 continued public hearing notice of intent 87 to Hadawan Road, DEP 204-1027, construction of 2-family residence. Okay, Lauren, let's see. So John, you're here.
Yes.
John, anyone else that's joining you that we need to move over?
I believe it's just me tonight.
Okay, great. If you could introduce yourself to the commission.
Absolutely. Let me share my screen too. So, good evening, John Plifka from McCarty Engineering here tonight, representing the applicant, Habitat for Humanity. This project hopefully looks familiar to all of you. It's been some time in front of you. The reason for the delay was we had a pending application with the zoning board. So at the last ZBA hearing, we did withdraw our application. So we were proposing this as a 2-family. Now, alternatively, we are electing to design and build this as a 1-family with an accessory dwelling unit. So there's no changes to the footprint or proposed improvements. It's simply just the difference between a 2-family and a 1-family with an accessory dwelling unit. So we're here tonight seeking an order of conditions for the proposed improvements as shown. And, if any commissioners have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Where is the accessory dwelling unit?
So it's a little up in the air on which side. The footprint of the building itself isn't going to change, just maybe the layout inside. So it would either be the left or the right of the box that's shown there.
So you're building a duplex in a different name?
Well, it's a 1-family with an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
All right, so commissioners, anyone have any questions? It has been a while since John was in front of us.
John, were there any other pending permits from like BOH, or I know ZBA kind of got stalled? Was there any?
Yeah, no. So that was kind of the big holdup with zoning. This does have to get approved by the Board of Health, which I believe has happened. I'm not totally 100% sure on that, but I believe it has been filed and approved for the septic system.
You think it has, or
I apologize. It has been some time. I believe it has been, but I can obviously double check.
Didn't we say the last time that we needed the permits to be completed before we could do our piece?
I believe we did.
So I apologize. I wasn't at the last meeting. I think it was someone else from our office. And my understanding was that it was the ZBA. The Board of Health permit in regards to the septic system, it's outside of the buffer zone. So I didn't see it. I don't think we believe to be as pertinent or at the time to be approved prior to coming before this board.
John, I've got a couple questions for you, and I apologize if we've addressed these in the past and I'm dredging up old things. This is going to be frustratingly nitpicky, but let's put the erosion controls right on the 50-foot buffer zone instead of just ever so slightly inside of the 50-foot buffer zone. That I think, as drawn, would technically warrant a waiver. Okay. And I'd rather not go down that pathway. Number 2 is, and if it's addressed in the notes, I apologize. Snow storage here, I think very obviously belongs to I assume north is up here, to the northwest of the driveway, but I'd like that specified, and I'd like you to account for how that will be managed. In other words, what I do not want to see is snow storage to the southeast of the driveway within the buffer zone. And I think that needs to be explicitly called out. And I think you need to account for making sure that whatever snow storage mechanism approach is going to be used, or snow removal approach is going to be used, whether a plow or I don't know, whatever you have in mind, that they've got the right turning radiuses and everything to do that. The other thing that I want to raise here is that I think we probably want to see some sort of demarcation. Essentially, what we don't want to have happen here is the southeastern portion of this property turned into lawn right up to the property line. Mm-hmm. And I think seeing some sort of demarcation there to maintain at a minimum what's within 50 feet, although I would defer to the wisdom of my colleagues, maybe that's further out, as undisturbed, maybe mowed once a year or something like that. I think that would be important to maintaining the integrity of the resource areas that are right there.
Sure. Yeah, I think we'd be amenable to all three of your points there. As far as the demarcation, I guess, what did you have in mind? Like a split rail fence or like boulders? I've just done it a couple of different ways in different towns, so just kind of want to see what the preference of this board.
I think we typically like boulders or something more natural looking rather than fencing or a sign, a planted sign, but I know most residents don't like those. So boulders is generally okay with me, but again, I defer to the wisdom of the commission. I do think what is most important is that it is demarcated and it's clear to the property owners what is acceptable there. I'm a little more agnostic about how.
Sure. Yeah, no, we can definitely, make a revision to the plan and add in some boulders along the 50 after, I pull back that silt fence, erosion control barrier. So
another nit, your plan still says proposed duplex. I know it's a duplex in name only. It's a single family with an accessory dwelling unit, but you should update the plan to reflect that.
Is that the plan, the file name, or?
No, I'm looking right at the picture. It says proposed duplex.
Your call out.
On the note.
Right
I
there,
apologize.
yes.
Yep. No, we can make that change as well.
Quick question to the commissioners. In the past, when we've had discussion on boulders, we've given some guidance as to the size or diameter and distance between them. Do you want to give John thoughts on that, or just have him come back with what he believes best for that property?
Big enough that the homeowner is not likely to move them around.
And how far apart would you like those boulders?
What's the total length of that property line there on the southeast edge of this?
I don't know that I have that information off the top of my head.
It looks like,
what am I at? I'm at 20 scale.
I mean,
close to 100 feet.
Yeah, looks like 100 feet.
I'm envisioning, 4 or 5 boulders across there to demarcate it, something like that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. So, John, it sounds like we would like to have you come in with a revised plan and also verification in terms of the Board of Health. Is that what we're tracking, commissioners? Anything else?
Are there any other permits that may not have been approved yet?
I do have one question about a permit there. Does the dry well need to be approved by the Board of Health as well, John?
No.
Okay.
So I guess I just, don't shoot me for asking, but would the board be amenable to making those conditions of approval, or it would be the preference to continue? There's tied some minor plan changes that we could provide.
I think it's a challenge because you did put that right on, you're kind of on that 50 coming through. That Chase brings up a good point about the waiver. I think.
Right. So there's no work proposed in it that the erosion control line does cross it. But that could easily be pulled back.
Well, yes, it has to be pulled back. Yes. But I'm just saying, commissioners, what would you like to do?
Before we go down that pathway, I have one other question that may impact this. John, are you proposing to remove any trees as the result of this?
We have one tree within the 50 and 100 foot, which we do have on note 6. That was identified on the field during our site walk.
Yeah.
But not in the 50. That's the 50 to 100.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're proposing to replant 5 trees?
Yeah, just to provide some additional screening to the neighboring properties. The applicants, more than willing to provide that.
One other change, I do think you should specify evergreen is pretty broad. Like I don't think what we want to see is 5 arborvitaes sitting up front. So I would also ask you to provide more specificity in terms of what you mean there, because we want to ensure that it's a native species and something that's going to have a high likelihood of survival.
Okay, so native being the big talking point, right? So,
and Lauren or Tim can help you with lists of what we typically like to see. So I would say all these changes, John, in my mind, yes, each one is small, but I think in aggregate, I'd rather see just a clean plan.
Yeah, sure. We have no objection of providing it. This, it would just be whether or not coming back to another meeting, in my mind.
Okay,
but,
and before we jump onto that, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. We do have someone in the audience that would like to ask questions or speak, so I have just unmuted them. If you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yes, hello, it's Mary Ellen Lyons. I am a butter that lives at 79 Tehadawon Road, and I guess I'm a little surprised because I was at the zoning board meeting, and I know, John, you were also there, and then Habitat withdrew their application for the duplex, but this is the exact same plan, and I guess I'm a little confused. So I guess as when you said an accessory dwelling, so they're planning to have one owner with someone living, with them, because that was not at all what was discussed at that zoning board meeting.
Sure. So Mary Ellen, yeah, we were previously going for them for zoning relief for a duplex. A single family with an accessory dwelling unit is a by right.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you. I have one. It's just that they kept saying it was not an affordable option for Habitat to be able to do that. I know they were planning to sell each unit separately, and you wouldn't be able to do that with an accessory dwelling. So I was just looking for a little more clarification. Sure. Because obviously this is a complete difference from the last meeting where you guys withdrew the application. But I know you were encouraging a vote, but I think there's a lot to be said about this plan, like just verifying some of that stuff. I hadn't heard the septic approval or any of those things had really changed since that last zoning board meeting.
Yeah. So, again, it's not the preference. It was the preference of us to go for the duplex, to have those 2 owners, to kind of align with Habitat's model. But they've, instructed us, and they've elected to proceed with the single family and accessory dwelling unit.
And just to be clear here, I think, Mary Ellen, the use of the property is not within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, right? We're only here to look at the Wetlands Protection Act and town bylaw impacts.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's confusing because it's the exact same plan. So I just before you start giving approvals, I thought you'd probably want to know, for sure what that this plan is an accessory dwelling unit rather than a duplex, which just changes whether it will be approved or not. That's all.
Yeah, and I think where we're getting to, Mary Ellen, is and John, is that I do think, John, the aggregate of all these little changes is we would like to just, my preference would be to have you come back. I realize it's a small burden to do so, but all of our meetings are virtual, so hopefully it's not too much of a burden. I'd like to see it tight and cleaned up. And frankly, what we saw with the plan we looked at a few minutes ago, where things deviated drastically from what was authorized, sort of factors in my mind here. I want the original plan to be right.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, John, Lauren will coordinate with you that you can have everything in for the next meeting, and we will look forward to seeing you again then.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us. Yep.
What?
Okay. Okay, it's now 8:31. We're going to go ahead and open the 8:30, which is a continued public hearing, discussion of current and future land use of town-owned parcel U12-14-0. Okay.
So, first of all, my apologies for a couple of weeks ago before the holidays, bailing on you guys at the last minute. What I would like to do here is we have, and what was circulated by the agent was some feedback from that Dustin Neild had submitted. That was, my understanding, is a summary of his discussion with a number of residents there, and the proposal therein differed a little bit from what we had discussed in the past. So what I would like to do is, rather than us teasing out additional options tonight, I would like to open the floor to additional public comment, because a month ago when we heard this, the alternatives hadn't really been something that the public had access to. I would like to get feedback on those, hear from what Dustin has to say, and if we could promote Dustin while I'm chatting, that would be a good thing. Hear what the public has to say on those options, then I can consider that feedback and come back to you all with a more refined list of options.
Yep.
So understanding that, what I would like to do is ask the commission, given that Dustin, I think, is summarizing feedback from a number of folks. If it's okay with everyone, I'd like to give Dustin probably 5 minutes, 6 minutes, more than our typical 3 minutes here, to sort of go through those things. Is that okay with everyone?
Sounds good.
Okay. Dustin, are you connected?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Are you able to sort of summarize things for us and let us know what you and your neighbors are thinking here?
Yep, absolutely. Exactly what I was thinking. So thank you for the extra time. I appreciate it. Also, thanks to Chase in particular for reaching out and arranging a walk with me. So the last time that we spoke about this meeting, it did seem like there was enough variability that it would have been unclear what the different dock maintainers kind of would be open to, and what were good solutions that kind of hopefully met everybody's needs. And so I volunteered just to kind of get everyone that I knew together, seek out as much information as we could about who's been maintaining those docks over the years, in some of our cases more than 20 years. And I did that in the interim, and Chase reached out and walked the shoreline and kind of discussed the Conservation Commission's goals, and we talked about the history and the community access to the lake, and comparing the lake to different conservation lands and access challenges that are dealt with kind of on a routine basis in other areas. So I did get with those dock owners, and the summary is essentially that there are 8 unpermitted docks between the beach and the end of Aspen, kind of near the edge of Prouty. Of those 8 docks, we identified 5 of them that have, identified maintainers that have been keeping up those docks and so forth. 2 of them are apparently abandoned, that no one was able to be identified to step forward onto. And I want to also make the point, like, this isn't sort of my opinion. This is collectively the group of everyone that we could get in touch with. So I'm kind of reporting out on behalf of the group, not on myself. But of those, the two that are kind of not necessarily derelict, but they're not owned, not actively maintained by anyone, are the two at the foot of Dogwood and Birch, respectively. And then the one that's all the way at the end by the last house at the bottom of Aspen, those owners told me that they're not able to use it anymore and we're planning for its removal anyway. So there is sort of potential for removal of three, kind of, I wouldn't say without objection, because others have potentially stepped up and may be interested in adopting those abandoned docks if there was an opportunity for one of the solutions that we'll get to. In a general perspective, everyone that I talk to that has been maintaining docks are strongly in favor of maintaining them for lake access. Everyone supports public access. I don't think anyone really ever had an intention for these to be seen as private docks. We understand that that's was sort of never on the table. And everyone kind of sees the docks as really not any different than the boardwalks that we have in many conservation lands in town. They're in fact just very short boardwalks that give people access to observe wildlife, fishing, boat launching, that kind of stuff. Everyone agreed that the personal liability of seeking a private license for a public dock was probably untenable, that practically no one was open for kind of seeking out this kind of specialized insurance to address personal liability for a situation like that. Is probably not something any of us wanted to pursue. And then lastly, as far as the number of docks, we see that as a result of the existing demand that has been illustrated over decades. So we think that the current number of 6 to 9 docks seems very well suited. So we do advocate for most or all of them remaining as much as possible. That would also help preserve the most motivation and kind of exchange of work for maintaining docks in order to continue stewarding the strips of land across from all of the abutters and stuff like that. If the commission were to reduce the number of docks, it could also make for kind of a tricky selection process, which ones remain, which ones goes away. It could also, sometimes the topography could dictate that, but I think it would be pretty awkward. So let's get to the three options that we discussed. The first one I know is probably not the favorite of the commissioners, which is the concept of licensing private or semi-private docks. Owners, or at least some of the owners, would be open to that arrangement if it's possible. Reason being that it's the closest to historic use, easiest and clearest kind of to manage, and it maintains the existing long-standing use. It also has the highest potential to raise funds for restoration of the lake. The middle option here seems like it might be the best solution, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves on that. This solution is to sort of license, to keep the existing docks, but make them public property maintained by the abutters as a service, and offer licenses for some boat slips on those docks. So think maybe one side of the dock with licensed boat slips to abutters or others that would sign up for it, and then the other side of the dock open for public launching and kind of more temporary use. This one certainly has the maximum potential for access and equity across the neighborhood, which I heard was a major concern, or we heard was a major concern. It allows continued boating in a nearly the as-is kind of state, but would be controlled and properly permitted, of course. It preserves the existing kind of maintenance incentives that, in exchange for maintaining stuff, neighbors would be more motivated to maintain the strips of land across from our homes, as we have done, but we certainly would welcome guidance on that, as previously discussed. It would also help relieve pressure on the beach and the boat ramp. This arrangement would also have the clearest liability management. I believe that public docks would fall under the town's kind of recreational use statutes and stuff like that. You guys certainly would want to consult with town council, I'm sure, about that. The cons of this solution is it does require some management. there is sort of an unfunded maintenance of that, but most of the neighbors are willing to continue maintaining the dock. All of the neighbors that stepped up are willing to maintain the docks as they have been during the years, which is typically pretty minor, but would be an expense we're willing to absorb. And it has the potential to limit the maintenance incentive of the parcels across the way because it's not exactly the same as before. The comment for that one is that boat slips in exchange for the care and maintenance kind of becomes a win-win where we preserve the access for the abutters and get public access, and it creates a kind of community asset that we'd be stepping up to maintain and fund. The last is really a hybrid option, the potential to mix options 1 and 2 because it doesn't have to be all of one or the other. If we did that, it would kind of solve both of the sets of challenges and address equity without restricting access. There'd still be lots of public access, even if there were a couple of privately licensed docks. The reason that would be good is there's a couple of ones that are close to one another. It could make it difficult to sort of decide which one stays and which one goes. But if we went with the hybrid option, it would give the commission some flexibility to sort of not take anything away, but have a solution for everybody involved. The only problem with that one is it doesn't fully address all of the concerns that we've talked about before. But then that flexibility also helps address some of the location and topography choices, right? Some of the docks might be on a hillier slope that might not be ideal for public access anyway, that kind of stuff. Any questions about these?
So, Dustin, what you're proposing for number 2, and I think as I work on developing these alternatives, I would want to bring town council in to think about these, but it's presuming that it's legal. You're essentially proposing there that like one of the conditions of the license is that the licensee is responsible for putting in and taking out the dock in exchange for having access to half of that dock. Is that,
yeah,
do I understand that right?
Yeah,
or
we're not looking
some
for
version of that.
We're not looking for special permission or anything like that. Access to a slip is certainly not a condition of doing it, but everyone is open to maintenance and seasonal removal or whatever standards you guys think are appropriate.
Okay. I will tell you too, just sort of thinking about this and commenting, one of my challenges that I see with number 3 and sort of this hybrid approach is picking winners and losers. That I don't know how we do that equitably.
Yeah, I think we were trying to get at this to actually address that problem because if, say, 8 docks were reduced to 3, you'd be picking winners and losers in a much more drastic fashion than if you were adopting a hybrid situation where, and I don't think it necessarily would mean a winner because someone got a private license. A few of them are kind of tucked in and in tight little areas, or one right next to a public dock I don't think is a big deal, but it would allow kind of both people to be winners just in different fashions.
Sure. And I'm acutely aware of your point about choosing winners and losers and other options too. So
sure.
Okay. The other, for the sake of the commission, one of the things that I want to do after tonight is get back with town council and talk about and think about what the liability management would be. I know either Tom or Ivrea touched on this a little bit, but I would want to, with some of the alternatives that we've talked about, and with these, the question really becomes the same in terms of what does the town's liability policy cover? What risks are we taking on? And I think if we were to choose one of these that has any docks, whether it's something we've already talked about or this more sort of fulsome set of docks, we would want to be clear with the town administration and the select board on the same page that if there is liability that the town is taking on, we're doing that with eyes wide open.
Yeah, and our group, welcomes that level of informed participation as well.
To be clear, I'm not sure that the town doesn't already have liability, so it just becomes a matter of managing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of it falls into recreational use statutes where if the public is accessing publicly accessible land, as long as there's not sort of an obvious known hazard that folks, when they're doing it for their own benefit, that there is not a liability there, just as the town is not liable if someone happens to, whatever, turn an ankle on a conservation trail.
So to summarize, Dustin, what you're arguing for, and I think the sort of group of closest abutters is looking for is an option that actually has more docks than I think the most dock intensive alternative that I put forward a few weeks ago. Is that right? I think I had like 3 or 4 as the top end, and you guys are arguing for 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that realm, essentially mirroring what's there.
Yeah,
currently.
we think what's there is a product of demand in the neighborhood, that reducing stuff would actually create more pressure on the beach and stuff like that.
Why would reducing the docks put pressure on the beach?
Because so these are not used strictly as private docks. Folks around the neighborhood use them all the time, particularly, for example, kids fishing go from point to point all over the place, right? So if you have the same number of users and a lower number of docks, you end up with more people per dock. That's all. And it gives people different, angles and different times of day to fish different parts of the lake and things like that. It would preserve the current amount of community access.
But it has nothing to do with the beach. You said it would put more pressure on the beach.
Well, if folks have to if folks have to go across the beach or to the boat ramp, collectively I've called them the beach, it would force them to go all the way down there, where depending on the location of 3 docks, you might end up with people that say come down Emerson, but if there's not a public dock handy to there, they have to go all the way to the beach. That's all.
So, Chase, so these would be on town conservation land. So it wouldn't be Park and Rec that would be managing these or discussing maintenance and that kind of thing. It would be us, correct?
Correct. And that's where I think another thing that I need to resolve with council is our ability to do that, because on one level these are recreation devices, on another I'm amenable to Dustin's argument that these are functionally no different than boardwalks in terms of recreational uses. So I think I need to explore that with council to make sure that if that is something that we want to do, or let me say it this way. I don't want to put an alternative for us to vote on in front of us that ultimately couldn't even be implemented because it's inconsistent with the regs.
Right.
Yeah, and I think to the point you're getting at, it's also not any different than, say, in a butter to a conservation land that happens to have a footpath from their property connecting onto a trail that's not an official trail, but there's a worn footpath for them, is sort of not much different than a footpath down to the shoreline of the lake. And I think a dock is actually less impactful than.
Well, I think the difference is that we would be encouraging people to use these docks for fishing and boat access or something like that, as opposed to the scenario you just described.
Yeah, I don't. Do you discourage neighbors from accessing conservation trails from their backyard?
We don't, but these docks should be on conservation land, so it's different.
Right, their footpaths are on conservation land also. I get what you're saying. There's just a little middle ground.
Dustin, you're asking apples and oranges there. It's a huge difference. If we sanction the docks, what we're saying is we are actively supporting private property on conservation land. And from my perspective, I have a concern with that.
Well, we're proposing them being public docks.
Maintained by the landowner.
Yeah, it's certainly a middle ground, right? Where if we look at this as, let's say, half the dock is licensed, then there is some pseudo private aspect of it, and yet the dock itself is still public property. So it is a boardwalk is not a perfect analogy here.
Sure.
There's some pseudo private piece to this, and yet it is still fully public.
To be clear, if the town wanted to do full maintenance for it, we'd also be open to that. We thought this was a better option for you.
Yeah.
But if the town decided to not allow them at all, which is, may or may not be the option, but if it did, then there wouldn't be no maintenance. There'd be no more liability than we have on any other conservation land.
That's correct, but we'd
And there
be
would be
drastically
no,
reducing the accessibility to the lake. And I think the public feedback you've gotten so far, though, has been on both sides. I think it's been 80 or 90% in favor of continued public access.
But to Carl's point, it is still town property, so someone still has to go, just like Board of Health has to do inspections. Conservation would still then have to find the time in the budget to allocate time to have people go and do those inspections, because they are, just like we have to do trails and have some stewards that help with some of that, but we have to be responsible for those docks and for the access and for the environmental impact.
And the docks would have signage associated with them and stuff we normally do at conservation land.
And so,
and that's one of the things that I want to tease out when I put all these alternatives together is, like if we did go down the pathway, whether it's a fewer number of docks like I had proposed to up to what the group that Dustin represents is proposing, there would, I think, be some requirement for us, the Conservation Commission, really, Lauren and Tim, to go get licenses for whatever docks we do decide to approve, because at the end of the day, what we've heard from council is there is no pathway here that doesn't involve the town being responsible for the docks and licensing access.
right, and I think it's very interesting that tonight, as one of our administrative discussions, is budget. So this, as we have that discussion after this hearing, we have to think about these things and the time and the funding for these as well.
I think the most productive next step would be if there are any other comments from the public, we can take those, or comments from the commission. But what I'd like to do now is sort of take this, get with council, package this up into a suite of alternatives, and consider what we've heard from the public and the development of those, as well as what we've heard in previous hearings from the commission.
Yeah, and I never intended to go through all the Q&A, but the neighborhood group put together kind of our interpretation of the Q&A that was put forward by the commission previously. So that's here for reference as well.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for your input, Dustin. We're going to move you back over as attendee. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
With that, are there any other comments from the public on this topic before we continue this?
So there we go. As an attendee, just raise your hand and I will move you right over. Okay, so you're now allowed to talk, and if you could please identify yourself with your address, that would be great.
Hi, this is Kathy O'Dwyer, 33 Lakeshore Drive. I appreciate all the work that Dustin and everyone on the board has been doing, or the commission, sorry. Everything tonight has been about the docks. I'm curious about the rewilding that was discussed earlier at other meetings, and want to know where we stand on that.
Where we stand with that is that will be one of the alternatives, or packaged into one of the alternatives. If you recall, there were really sort of three aspects to this decision making. One is, what do we do with what I call the landscaping and vegetation? Two is, what do we do with canoes and kayaks and associated storage? And three is, what do we do with the docks? I think if you look through what Dustin put forward, there's some element there of also maintaining the access to those docks, which fits into some of the vegetation and management. One thing that Dustin didn't address, I think, is how canoes and kayaks get sort of fit into that, but I don't think that is all that important there. So at the end of the day, there will be an alternative that I put forward that really essentially considers returning the Lakeshore Drive to a as natural of a state as we can, given what currently exists. But the other end of that would be maintaining open vistas and maintaining dock access. We haven't made any decisions on those.
Okay, so there's no other hands up. Commissioners, any discussion or questions? Nope. I spoke too soon. Okay. Emily, I'm just putting you up to speak, and then Blaine.
This is Emily Squires at 57 Orchid Drive. And
Emily, can I just want to be really clear here. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. The way you're labeled is the Littleton Sustainability Committee. Is this a comment on behalf of you or on behalf of the Sustainability Committee?
It's on behalf of me. I just don't know how to change that label.
That's fine. I just want to be clear about the record. Sorry, go ahead, Emily. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, this is from a personal, not from the Sustainability Committee. I'm concerned about some of the proposals. If we do have docks approved, does that mean other people within Littleton will have the right to come in and say they have the ability to do the same thing? Put in a dock, have half of it for their own use, they maintain it, and so on. Because if you're trying, I'm looking for something that's fair, and just to come in and say, okay, someone has put in an unlicensed structure off of public land, and because of that, they have preference to, some of these scenarios that were mentioned. So if you can address that, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, Emily, I think at the end of the day, what we will not do, and is not on the table at all, is a cattle call for anyone that wants to put in a dock. I do think one of the things that is motivating our thinking here is that the docks that are currently there, although unpermitted and although on public property, are also the result of essentially a long-running handshake agreement understanding. And so there's also an equity question here about not sort of pulling the rug back from people who, rightly or wrongly, understood from the town that they were allowed to do this. So I am certain there will not be an avenue. I'm not proposing an alternative that says anyone that wants to can come in and put in a dock. What we would say, though, is that if someone wants to, one alternative will say a finite number of docks, we'll define what that number is. And if someone wants to take responsibility for that, and probably giving sort of first right to look at that to people who have historically done so, and in exchange license access, that may be an option. But it won't be just a cattle call. Anyone that wants to be a defined and finite number, and not to exceed number.
Okay, thank you. Up next will be Blaine. Blaine, you're up if you want to speak.
Sorry, my mic was off. Blaine French, 7 Emerson Drive. I just wanted to briefly say that I think the letter by Brown and Mitchell perhaps sum things up best in stating that things have and are working without problems as they are. And it seems to me that there's no problem here to solve really other than clarification of what is proper use of the land and the docks. I don't see an equity problem if the docks are made public. I agree with Dustin and others that the current number, or approximately the current number, is best. I don't see a issue for the town if the docks are left designated public and maintained by volunteers. The neighborhood is already very good at volunteer activities. Volunteers have removed invasive plants, organized trash pickups, and so forth. I would not anticipate a problem with the docks being maintained by volunteers. I also am a little puzzled by discussions of liabilities or new liability, because it seems to me I don't see a difference in the liability with public docks versus someone just walking on the land as it is, or fishing or launching from a log that's lying in the water or a rock that's in the water. I really just don't see how these small, low impact, tiny docks add liability. And in terms of people outside of Littleton using the land, this is a great pond. My understanding is that anyone has access to the pond. I certainly, and as was stated, I wouldn't expect any private use of the. In fact, I forget if I stated it, but I think my opinion is that everything should be public. I would not be in favor of any sort of private use, or even exceptions to public use. So, in summary, it just seems to me that there's very little, if any, problem here to be solved, other than clarification of proper use. Thank you.
I would like to address that, Blaine, because I do think it's notwithstanding the fact that everyone here who has maintained a dock there has argued that it's always been maintained in the public interest. We have very credible complaints, as well as our own individual experiences that suggest that that has not always been the case. And the issue that we are trying to resolve here is that, in fact, as much as it is public land and it is public access, it has not, in fact, consistently and always been handled that way. And that begs for, and I appreciate Ms. Brown and Mr. Mitchell's commentary that we're regulating something and creating bureaucracy where one doesn't exist. But our role here is to ensure that public access and public resources are managed in the public interest. And the fundamental issue that we are trying to resolve is that, for whatever reason, and I acknowledge it's not always consistent, that stopped happening, and it started to be treated as private land, and that's a problem, and that can't happen. Hence, a bureaucratic process.
Yes, if I could just say one more thing, I agree completely with that. You have the responsibility, and that's what I meant by clarification, is that if in the past there has been some misunderstanding or for whatever reason, some treatment of certain things as private, that's what is seems to me a question of clarification. Just clearly state, and ideally in some very short public statement or document, what is the proper public use of the land.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I do want to let everyone know we've had now I think 3 hearings on this. My expectation is 2 weeks from now we will take this to a close and vote on it, probably with a recommendation that we then take to the select board and so on. But I would anticipate that next meeting is our last public hearing on this.
For clarity on that, Chase, you're looking for some additional feedback from legal counsel based on these last two discussions since they were present.
Correct. Yeah. What I need to do is consolidate all of the information that we've gotten, feedback that we've gotten, public input that we've gotten, letters that we've gotten, consolidate all of those into some alternatives, run those through council, run down any legal issues with council, and then bring forward to you all a range of alternatives that we can discuss and debate and make a decision around. Ideally, I would not expect all of the legal issues will be 100% resolved, but we would like to have confidence from council that if we choose a path, the legal issues are resolvable.
That's what meeting worth.
Well, yeah, exactly. As I'm saying that, I'm thinking maybe
you just laid out. You just told me that you're going to lay out, maybe new alternatives at this point now too, and we're going to debate them and come up to a conclusion by next meeting.
Specificity to the alternatives that we've put forward, anyway. Like if you recall, last meeting it said 3 or 4 docks was an alternative. Well, which 3 or which 4? And what we've heard now from the residents is potential, or at least some residents, is that they're looking for maybe more docks than that. So I think we need to run some of the legal mechanisms down to do that. As I'm saying that, though, I'm thinking 2 weeks might not be enough to get all that back from council. So I would suggest, if it's okay with you, Sarah, we don't take this up in 2 weeks, but we take it up in 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think it would be hard pressed for them to listen to the last meetings and take all the dialogue in. So I just don't want them to be rushed, and maybe such that if we could have them, if you felt it necessary, Chase, to have them come back in to speak with us as well.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely want to.
Yeah.
Them here.
Okay. So
Chase,
just
Chase and Sarah, one more thing before we close. Just there's like small little pieces to Chase and involve, like can boats stay overnight on the dock? There's certain things that are also gonna impact this, like this specifics, right? Not just putting the docks up, but then use is a whole nother topic, and I'm not sure if we're gonna get to that point.
I think my plan is to go partway down that pathway, Carl. Like, essentially answer the question: if we license access to the docks, would we allow whoever we license it to have a boat there overnight? Yes or no? What about temporary uses? Yes or no? But beyond that, those may be things that what we would have to be is confident that we could resolve some of those issues if we choose a pathway. But I don't necessarily want to do the work to get every one of those details squared away for every alternative, because it's probably not a great use of time.
Yeah.
And speaking of time, we still have some other things we have to discuss. So, Chase, if we can move on from this discussion, if you feel that's okay, I would like to do that and thank everyone that was an attendee. And yeah, that would be great. So that way we can move on and carry on with our meeting tonight. Good.
Yeah, I think we're all set.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to jump back to discussion items. Let's go ahead and start with the Lauren, I'm going to turn this over to you for Mass Trails Grant.
Yeah, so this is an update. Tim had talked to you all about putting in a Mass Trails application for a Braille trail. This got a little more kind of cumbersome, I think, than we expected. So for trail construction with a Mass Trail grant, we would need to meet it's called FSTAG, Forest Service Trail Accessibility Guidelines. And that requires a soil analysis to determine if we can have a natural trail or if it needs to be paved. There's a whole lot of grading issues. It needs to be, less than 5% grade. So Tim is proposing to not apply for the Mass Trails grant and instead to put in a CPC grant application in the fall to move forward with a Braille trail. And he's thinking the fall just because we have a lot of other projects that we're thinking of doing and CPC in the spring. If we move forward with a CPC application for the Braille Trail in the fall, we would then work with the highway department and the building department to create ADA parking spaces. And we're still thinking of YAP. So what Tim is really looking for at the moment is both, thoughts on this and then thinking about scheduling a site walk at YAP when there's no snow cover for people who are interested to see where he's thinking of it.
And I did speak with Tim the other day very briefly about this, just the really high bar that the state's looking for from us for this. So I agreed, CPC sounds like the best route to get that standard Braille trail compliance without all the extra headache. So I'm happy to help them put together the application when, and Lauren as well, when we're ready to move forward for the fall.
When we do that site walk, can we extend the invitation to the Disability Commission?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Andrew, do you know how to get a hold of this Diane Crowry lady?
I've heard of her. I think I can probably patch this through.
if you can connect with her and make sure,
happy to do that.
And we have discussed this with her as well. So
good.
Yeah.
Okay, next, Lauren, up is 6 Cottage Way.
Yeah, so this is just an update that 6 Cottage Way was in litigation, and we were told today that the appeals court affirmed the Conservation Commission's amended order of conditions that was issued to Ms. Kazokas. So this is hopefully likely the end of the litigation process, but there still is an option for an additional appeal by the.
There is still an option for an appeal, though, right? Yeah. Another one. Okay.
Yeah, that could happen.
Okay.
Would that be to the Supreme Judicial Court, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This has been going on so long that I have emails in my inbox from Keith Bergman about 6 Cottage Way.
Oh no, that's just so long. Okay. Let's see. So Chase, you already told us about the Scouts. You're going to get back to us at the next meeting. Lauren, FY27 conservation budget presentations.
Yeah, this is just an update that the budget presentation has been scheduled for February 4th at 6:30 p.m. at the police department. That is kind of super Saturday, but February 4th is a Wednesday for us.
Okay, so I know Ed, you met, was it with Kyle or who, when you guys, or no? Who
it was with me.
I dreamt that up. Okay, so Michael and Ed?
Yes.
Okay. It would be super helpful if either of you or both of you could put that on your agenda. That would be great. Okay.
What was the date and time?
Yep, so it's February 4th, 6:30 p.m. at the police department.
6:30.
I'm not sure what day that is.
I believe it's a Wednesday.
Okay.
Sarah, can we go back to Newtown Hill real quick?
Yep.
I just wanted to take sort of a straw poll of folks. Are there any major concerns with an application for the Scouts? Let's say 15 Scouts, maybe 20 to camp on top of Newtown Hill again?
Is it similar? Are we talking past use? Same
it's
idea?
exactly the same thing as what they did last year and the year before.
Assume it wouldn't change much, right? It's the same group and they're
right.
doing the
Carry
same.
in, carry out, leave no trace, all the good Scout practices.
Are they going to have open flame?
Yes.
Okay. So do you need to talk to fire department as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is identical to. This is going to be a yearly thing, you guys.
It was very successful the last couple of years, so I imagine it will be.
Chase, when you put forth that date, do you want to have a rain date or backup date so we can do one approval?
Yep, that's the plan this year.
Okay.
But if things go according to plan, it'll probably be the last weekend of January, which is why things are a little tight. Still time for us to hear it. Well, not us. I won't be voting on it, but for the commission to hear it 2 weeks from now. But I think they would like to start planning it.
Great.
What was the date you were talking about?
The 20th. Yeah, either the 24th or the 31st.
Yeah,
All right,
last
yeah,
week is
so the
30,
meeting is
31st.
20th then. Okay, I get it now.
Okay. Just because we jumped around the agenda quite a bit, I'm just going back through. I think we've hit all the targets.
Oh, I completely forgot. There was one more thing. I know annual reports are due February, I want to say 9. Did you guys see any emails about that?
Lauren, have you seen that yet, or has Tim?
I have not, and Tim did not mention it, but I can check in with him.
I can check really quick because I think Lisa sent an email out. Let's see.
I just assumed that Tim and Lauren and others had gotten that. Andrew, can you forward that to them when you get a chance?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then, as a memory, who helped with that last year? Wasn't there someone that helped Tim with that report?
And February 13th is the due date.
Thank you.
Sarah, I got a question to Lauren on the Braille Trail.
Yep.
Hey, Lauren, I was wondering, how many Braille trails are in the state? Any idea?
I don't have an idea of a number, but there are certainly some that we've looked at as examples.
So not so it would be something unique for as well as Littleton as well as the state if we can get a Braille Trail established.
It would certainly be unique for Littleton, not for the state. There are some elsewhere.
If you could just,
yeah.
I'd just be interested in
Yeah.
knowing approximately how many there are.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you recall any within our communities?
So Acton Arboretum has an ADA trail. I'm not sure if it's a Braille trail.
Okay.
Similarly, there's an SVT property that has an ADA trail, and I'm not sure if it's specifically Braille. But.
And the other thing I was wondering, you think it'd be helpful if we got like a partner like the Perkins School to help support this, even letter form?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, this is new to both Tim and myself, so I think the more help and support we can get.
And I know the more support letters you get for things like this, it's always helpful.
Yeah.
Just doing a quick look, it seems like there's quite a few, especially at the Mass Audubon sanctuaries.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? I think we've done all our administrative discussions and hearings, so it's 9:17. If someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Last roll call of the night. Carl.
Come over, guy.
Ed.
Ed votes aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxwell, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerber, aye.
And myself, aye. We're adjourned.